my favorite personal Evan Williams story is about in 2008. Was it 2008 that we did Fortune Brainstorm Tech in Half Moon Bay? Can anybody back me up on that? Yeah. Anyway, I left our conference. I drove to San Francisco because I had an interview at this little company called Twitter. And I met Ev, and there was some sort of employee celebration, like a birthday party or a pizza party or something going on. Probably. And you and I were standing off at the edges of this party, and you said to me, "This Twitter thing, it's going to be really big. I'm telling you."
Did it really?
You did.
All right.
You did. It made a big.
We'll see if it. I still think so.
We'll get to that. We'll get to that in a bit. So you're doing something new. I want to ask you to take a couple minutes and tell the uninitiated about Medium, your current project.
All right. So Medium is yet another publishing platform. It's a place where people read and write stories and ideas on the internet. It's we started it about 2 years ago, and we're about to launch a mobile app and a bunch of other stuff. But that's the idea. And so,
when you left Twitter, I want to sort of tease out of you the entrepreneurial experience. Can you talk a little bit about, did you already have this idea? Did you go to a coffee shop and put on headphones and think, what am I going to do next? Talk a little bit about how you came to starting another company.
What happened was I left Twitter and I immediately thought, actually I was in Aspen when it really came to me. A couple months later, I was at the Aspen Ideas Festival.
We hear that's an okay conference.
And I think my wife will remember this. I remember I woke up at 6 in the morning and I started scribbling in a notebook, and I had this very clear vision for this product. And it was this publishing platform. And at the time, I was just restarting what we call Obvious, which is the company that Twitter actually spun out of in 2006. And with Biz Stone and Jason Goldman, we had agreed to work together again, but we had no idea what we were going to do. And so I was at Aspen, and I was like, this is the thing. And it was really the encapsulation of lots and lots of ideas. And the date back to working on Blogger 15 years ago, ideas. And I once read that you think of 25 years worth of features in your first 6 months of a software development project. So I'm only 15 years in to this one, and I have a few more ideas. But so that came to me, and then I thought, well, you know what? I don't even know if I want to start another product company. We were doing investing and maybe some incubating, and wasn't ready to dig into that. I also thought, I'm just stuck in a rut. I need to think about something different for a while. So I put it off for a few months, and after 6 or so months, I decided this was the thing I was still obsessed with, and there was a huge opportunity here and an opportunity to do something important, so I needed to dive into it. And it was really the culmination of all kinds of things. Literally some things that I thought about in Blogger days that I hadn't seen done, some things that just occurred to me during Twitter that wasn't quite the right context for, and I thought there's just something that I have to do. So that's when we kicked it off.
And you joke, that you're doing yet another publishing project, but it's interesting that that there's this consistency to your ideas, that they literally are iterative of each other, correct? Mm-hmm. And you think of it that way?
Absolutely. I mean, that's part of also why I decided it was okay to dive into this, is because the sharing of ideas and stories is so fundamental. It's a huge thing, and it's part of what the internet enables, and how it impacts society is sharing ideas and stories. And when we first started working on this, I felt another way I came to it is when I stepped away from Twitter. I had this desire to get back to blogging, and I had all these ideas I wanted to write about that I couldn't really do as CEO of Twitter, and so I went back to Blogger, which I was always loyal to, and it's like, well, it seems like this should have evolved more in the last 10 years. And I looked at other products and thought, well, it feels like we considered this area done, and then we stopped working on it. And clearly there's more to do. And it's no longer, our motivation at Blogger, especially once we got to Google, was we just want to democratize publishing. We want as many voices in the world as possible, and that's going to lead to this greater good, we believed. And so that was our mission, and we wanted to make it as easy as possible to put thoughts out there and well, we didn't even consider a job at Blogger to help the good stuff rise to the top. We just took it on faith that would happen.
And excuse me, I should just remind everybody who doesn't know the history that Ev sold Blogger to Google. You stayed at Google for a while.
Yep.
Then you left. Blogger still exists within Google. Then
Yep.
you did Twitter, and now you're at this thought process.
Right. So I worked on Blogger for about 6 years, 4 years before Google and a couple years at Google, and left in good hands. It grew, to tens of millions of users, and then we did Twitter, and it was a little bit of continuation on the same theme, and it was really about vastly lowering the barrier even further. It's like the whole idea of creating a website is still like writing a whole thing. It's like we could multiply that by 1,000-fold by making it really, really easy. And so Medium has different goals, but is definitely a continuation. I feel like we're always, with the internet and technology in general, building on top of the last layer. And now that everyone can have a voice, and that's not the problem. It's okay, what do we do next? What's the next higher value thing we can do?
And so take another minute and sort of give everybody a little fuller description of what Medium is, and in your view, how it compares to similar products.
So Medium is it's a I should be better at describing it. Still working on that. I'm still trying to describe Twitter, actually. But so there's two different ways to come at Medium, as a creator or a consumer. It's very different dynamics. It's not a social media product. The goal isn't to get everybody creating. There's some subset of people who have things they want to share in the world. And it's mostly, right now, Medium is text and pictures, and you can embed videos and tweets and whatever else, but it's the type of stuff that's in blogs, but also in magazines and whatever. It's published stuff. And we call it ideas and stories because we're not emphasizing news or other things, but it could be a personal story, it could be investigative journalism, it could be 2 paragraphs, it can be 50,000 words. And on the creation side, it's the easiest and most streamlined way to put a thought out in the world or a story that looks good. We have this very nice in-browser editor. You don't have to have any overhead of creating a blog, or picking a template, or naming, or promoting, or anything. It's a blank piece of paper, and as the best way to put something out there, and then you have a very nice looking web page, essentially, that is responsive, and you can share it, and you can get feedback, and you can get inline comments and all these things. And so it's a nice thing to do that. The difference between that and a blogging platform, besides the editor, is really that it's a network. And that's the really key thing, is that you're not creating a website. What you're doing is much more akin to actually tweeting or uploading a video to YouTube, where you have your creation and you're putting it alongside all these others, and the principle of network effects comes into play in that you just have a much better chance of getting the audience that you want.
And share some of the metrics from where you were a year ago, say, to where you are today.
Well, I didn't know you were going to ask me numbers. It's growing well, and it's growing about 20x in 2013. We launched it in August 2012. We just opened up publishing in October 2013. So we had a pretty long...
Anyone, in other words, outside of the original beta group.
Yeah. You have to have a Twitter account, but those are easy to get. And so we use Twitter authentication, then anyone can publish. And it's growing very, very quickly. We have about on the consumption side, it's we have about 13 million uniques right now. So it's small. The the creators is a tiny subset of that, but it's on a good trajectory.
Now, and I've used it, and I think it's the most, it's the easiest to use, the simplest, and an extremely beautiful way to create. And I've used other platforms. It's just plain easy.
Yeah. We have a lot of people who are actually professional writers and journalists who write in Medium, but don't publish in Medium, which doesn't do us any good. But I still like to hear it because they actually love the editor. I have people who tell me they write their emails in Medium, and then they go and paste them into Gmail just because they like the experience.
That's crazy. So 9 million uniques, you describe that as small because you're comparing it to Twitter. But
yeah.
9 million uniques is
Wait, did I say 9 million? It was 13.
13, thank you.
Yeah. It was 9 million in December. So
not a trivial number for a young company with no revenues.
Yeah, it's I don't know what numbers are considered. It seems like the numbers are all ridiculous these days. So but it's on a good ramp up, yeah.
Do you have a business strategy for Medium?
Yeah. Why are people laughing? I think that we are not building any revenue generation pieces of it right now. The way I'm thinking about that is different than, say, we were thinking about it at Twitter. Twitter is very deliberate at any time. Despite all the rhetoric in the press, for years, we were very confident there's a strong business model for Twitter because we were delivering people real-time information that they cared about. And from almost day one, there was commercial activity on the platform. People are opting in to receive messages from Starbucks. There was no doubt we were going to be able to make money off this thing. It was a matter of figuring out exactly what the product offering was. But we knew at any given time, we have so many engineers and designers and product people. And so do we focus them on improving the user experience for everyone, or do we improve them on making money? And money was cheap, so we delayed that effort for a while. And then it worked. And Medium, I think about very differently because the content doesn't come as easily. We care about professional content as well as amateur content. Professional content needs to be paid for. So we want to inject money into the system earlier. So we will be doing things earlier to do that. But it's no great mystery or great idea what those things will be. It's if you can create a content platform that works at scale, I think in every other case, it's been able to make money. So we're going to be able to make money.
And in every other case, that way to make money has been advertising.
But not purely advertising. I mean, like iTunes isn't advertising. There's other content platforms that are not advertising. Netflix isn't advertising. I think the healthiest thing would be a combination of things, and we want to really be a platform, let 1,000 flowers bloom, and let people do things that make sense for their both their tastes and their philosophy.
Now, you hinted at something really interesting about what you've done so far about spending money. Most of the content on Medium is user-generated, is completely free to you. But you've spent some money as well. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so from the beginning, we said, okay, clearly we want to build these network effects. We have a chicken and egg problem. So how do we create a network where creators are coming because that's where the consumers are and vice versa? So stage one was to build a publishing tool that was worthwhile to use for some segment of those who are willing to create, just because it was more elegant, more easy, and even if all the traffic to their story came from their own tweet, then that was still better than they don't want to set up a blog, the experience is better. Part two was seeding that platform with good stuff and making it a legitimate place to write. And this goes back a little bit to Blogger days. The one thing that people may have noticed on Blogger, there's millions of blogs or pages you may come across in your life that are on blogspot.com. And now it seems kind of weird because those are all powered by Blogger. Why is blogger.com pages on blogspot.com? The reason was we wanted to avoid, the first year Blogger existed, we had no hosting at all. We were such web geeks. We were like, well, clearly everybody who wants to write on the internet already has web hosting and FTP access to that. So we'll just like let you fill in your FTP server credentials, and then we'll just port your page over there, and then you'll have total control, because we don't want to be in that business. That was a little bit silly, and a year later we made the option of us hosting it, but we thought, you know what, like kind of the less serious, less sophisticated people are going to want the hosting, and it's going to make us look bad, so we're going to put that on a different domain, because we want to avoid what we call the GeoCities problem. Like, who wants to use GeoCities? It's all kinds of crap on GeoCities. And now I think that was all silly. But in a little bit of similar way, we think the benefits of publishing on Medium, it'll both be easier and more beneficial for the vast majority of people who, on the amateur side, who would maybe otherwise have their own domain and their own blog and have their own setup. But who you're associated with matters a lot.
Yep.
So instead of making it like, oh, I can't afford my own domain or something, and so I'm going to publish on Medium thing, we want to be like, no, there's really great stuff on there. I want to be associated with those people. So that was the original impetus to get the editorial team. So we have a small editorial team of about half dozen people who solicit and commission content and help it look good. They do some curation of the community-driven content. We have no full-time writers on staff. We just have people who kind of juice it in the same way that any content platform has people who work with VIP users or partners or whatever. And so just kind of seeding it, building the brand, building the traffic, small percentage of what we do.
Is this thing going to be really big?
I think it's going to be really big.
That's exactly what
Really
he
big.
said that day in the food line at Twitter. What's your assessment of how Twitter's doing? Remind us what your formal role is.
I'm a board member of Twitter, and I think they're doing great. That's about all I can. No comment on how they'll be doing in the future.
Yeah. Understood.
Dick is doing an amazing job, and
Dick Costolo, the CEO.
yeah, and love him.
What? He loves Dick Costolo. That was the quote.
You can write that down.
Did you read Nick Bilton's book?
What book is that? Didn't he have a couple books?
I only know about the one on Twitter.
Oh, okay. I did.
What was it like reading a book about 5 intimate years of your life?
It was intense.
Reading it?
Yeah, it was very intense. The book starts out with me puking in a trash can. For those who haven't read it.
And it went downhill from there.
Yeah. It ended with me reading books with my wife to our kids, which was lovely. But so I read it on the plane on the way to the IPO.
Wow.
And then the next day, actually 2 days later, we had the IPO, and I was there on the stock exchange floor, and then flew back with the whole team and went to Twitter. And so it was a couple of the most intense days of my life, other than the day I was puking in the trash can. But it was crazy. I don't know what to say about it.
I want to take 1 or 2 questions from you all, if there are any, right in front.
Can you talk about how the network at Medium works? Do you follow people?
Sure. Right, how the network on Medium works. So we're still fleshing it out, to tell you the truth. How it works right now is content is organized in what we call collections. So any story can be in 1 or more collections, and what people follow are collections, not people, currently. And so anyone can start a collection, and collections, the idea is collections will build audience, and you'll want to be in the popular collections, and those popular collections will act kind of like publications and solicit content. We're adding an element to that, which we have launched actually, which is social connections as well. So we use Twitter authentication, as I mentioned. So if you log in with Twitter, we're actually now pulling anything from people that you follow on Twitter, as well as anything those people recommend into your personalized reading list. So recommend is our like, fave, this is good mechanism. And so that's been a really interesting dynamic and been much better because who knows what collections they want to follow. But if you already are an active Twitter user and if you're in the network that's the early adopters that are on there right now, that's been a really useful thing. And then the collections are sort of an adjunct to that.
And you mentioned you're launching a mobile product. When is that?
Yeah, that's my announcement. I gave you an announcement.
I know I caught that, but I wanted to hear a little more.
It's going to be out. What's today?
Today's Thursday the 6th.
It'll be out next week, I believe.
And on what platforms?
Just iOS, or yeah, iPhone, iOS for starters, and that's going to be focused on just consumption at first. There won't be curation there.
One last question over here.
So you talked a little bit about, Blogger, people had to sort of earn their own traffic, all content was the same. With Medium, how do you think about, elevating some content? Are you guys promoting content? Should everybody have a personalized experience?
I think ultimately everybody has to have a personalized experience. We don't, so the vast majority of consumption on Medium today is logged out users, and as you in particular would know very well, that's coming in through to the content itself. And then, but ultimately, and there is a Medium homepage that is a combination of editors' picks and trending, and then, but really what it needs to be as broad as possible is that it needs to be totally personalized. We don't want to have like what's popular on Medium globally for a long time. That works kind of now, but ultimately the most popular thing will be of interest to some very tiny percentage of people. So we'll be personalizing it increasingly and maybe by geography, et cetera, but we don't expect to be controlling it editorially.
So that's a function of improving the algorithm?
It's a function of two things. It's converting people from the casual stoppers by to logged in, which will allow us to personalize it for them, as well as we can do a lot of things because people are coming in straight to the stories. Then we can just kind of go from there.